Hey guys, tonight we begin with something a little different. You're not a knight, you're not a pharaoh, you're not even a peasant this time. No, tonight, you're a soot scraper. You wake up to the sound of steam hissing like an angry snake in a frying pan, your eyes open, reluctantly, in a space no larger than a coffin. And honestly, a coffin might smell better. It reeks of sweat, boiled cabbage, and the kind of mold that seems like it's plotting something. The ceiling's low enough that you can't sit up straight, and the walls sweat condensation like the ship itself is exhausted. There's no window, just metal, pipes, and the steady thud thud of engines turning coal into motion and motion into madness. You're on a 19th century steamship, not the Titanic, not the majestic kind with parasols and promenade decks. No, you're on a creaking, soot choked behemoth, ferrying freight, mail, and misery across some corner of the Atlantic. Third class, or what the shipping companies generously call below human expectations. You don't sail first class, you fuel it. You thought maybe there'd be a uniform, something romantic maybe. Instead, you're wearing yesterday's shirt, which was also yesterday's pajamas, and possibly someone else's shirt before that. The collar is stiff with dried sweat. Your boots gave up on waterproofing 3 countries ago. Your hands? Raw, cracked, and darkened from fingertips to wrist in a layer of grime, so thick it might qualify for its own nationality. You roll out of your bunk, or more accurately, slide out, bumping your head on the metal above you, because gravity, like the engine room, has no mercy. The floor underfoot is warm. That might sound cozy. It's not. It's warm like a fever, like the ship is angry and you're its bacteria. Every pipe hisses, every surface steams, every minute you spend here takes a year off your lungs. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fun to see who else can't sleep. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You grab your ragged cap and trudge into the main corridor. A passing fireman gives you a nod. More of a grimace, really? Nobody's cheerful down here. Smiling uses muscles that are better saved for shoveling coal. The ship's rocking isn't romantic. It's not swaying gently like a lullaby. It's tilting slightly, while you're carrying hot tea across an obstacle course. A low groan echoes from deep in the boiler, a sound like an old god waking up angry, or possibly hungry. For you, you descend the ladder. It's slippery, always slippery, with oil, soot, water, sweat. You've fallen twice already this week. The bruise on your thigh looks like an impressionist painting. The air gets thicker with every step. By the time you reach the engine room, your breath has to push through a fog of coal dust and hot grease. You wipe your forehead and just smear more black across your skin. Clean is a concept reserved for officers, or perhaps dreams. The noise hits you first. It's not one sound, it's a wall of them. Pistons hissing, valves clanging, chains rattling. And underneath it all, the low, endless rumble of the boilers, like the heartbeat of a mechanical god with indigestion. Steam rises in plumes from every direction. It curls around your ankles and into your nose. It doesn't feel like moisture. It feels like punishment. Your job? Soot scraping. Sounds simple, right? Scrape soot. Maybe you imagined a fireplace, a chimney sweep in a Dickens novel with a jaunty cap and a catchy tune. Reality check. The soot here is hot, sticky, and clings to the flue walls like guilt. And the flue, it's a pitch black metal crawl space that gets hotter the longer you're in it. It's not a chimney, it's a metal intestine, and you are the undigested regret. Historians still argue whether soot scraping was truly more dangerous than stoking the fires, but anyone who's done both knows this much. The scraper gets less air, more heat, and no thanks. Before you go in, you prep. Gloves, if you're lucky to find ones without holes. A bandana to cover your nose, which is about as useful as a napkin in a hurricane. And the scraper, a long, heavy metal rod with a curved end, perfect for gouging soot off the inner walls. It's also your best friend, your only weapon, and possibly the reason your shoulder always aches. There's a superstition down here. First-time scrapers always get the wheeze. It's not a disease, technically. It's your lungs reacting to hot air and dust and existential regret. They say, if you make it through your first week without coughing up black mucus, you've earned your place. If you make it 2 weeks without seeing things in the steam, you're practically a veteran. You open the flue hatch. Heat bellows out like a dragon exhaling shame. Your face flushes instantly. Sweat forms before you've even entered. It's fine. You're not allowed to smell yourself anyway. Crawling into the flue is a tight squeeze. The walls are slick with soot, and your scraper clangs as you drag it behind you. The heat wraps around your chest. It's not unbearable, yet, but it's aggressive, like it's testing you, like it wants to see what part of you will break first. You begin scraping, long dragging strokes. The soot peels off in chunks, sticky and reluctant. You feel it falling onto your arms, into your collar. It gets everywhere, in your ears, your eyelids, your teeth. One guy said he found soot in his sandwich a week after quitting the job. After 20 minutes, your shirt is soaked. The sweat can't escape. It just simmers against your skin. You can't wipe your face because your gloves are worse than the soot. Your arms ache. Your back screams. You keep going. You hear a voice outside the flue. Keep it moving, lad. It's the chief engineer. He says, lad, even if you're 50. You don't reply. You'd waste precious oxygen. Plus, your mouth is full of soot. At some point, your legs cramp. Your nose starts to bleed. And you realize, this is just the beginning. You haven't even seen the worst part yet. You back out of the flue, blinking through the fog. Your hands shake. The metal scraper is now hot enough to fry an egg. If only you had an egg. Or anything that didn't taste like disappointment. You look down at yourself. You're black from head to toe, like a sad ghost drawn in charcoal. And you know you'll be back in there tomorrow, maybe sooner. If the pressure gauge starts twitching, the air down here isn't really air. It's a suggestion of air, an illusion, like the idea that you'll be promoted someday, or that socks will dry in this climate. You breathe in and feel. What exactly? A warm, gritty fog sliding down your throat like you just swallowed a spoonful of chimney. It's a mix of steam, ash, oil, and something else. Something metallic, coppery, like you just bit your tongue, except it's not your tongue, it's the atmosphere. The first cough comes easy. The second one drags something from deep in your chest. By the third, you're hacking up little black flecks that look like pepper and taste like burnt regret. You wipe your mouth with your sleeve and instantly regret that too, because now you've added boiler grease to your upper lip. Delicious. Around you, the engine pulses. It sounds alive, not friendly alive, more like an angry whale that's swallowed 1,000 anvils and is considering legal action. Pipes groan, chains rattle. Somewhere behind you, a valve screams. You flinch automatically. A seasoned soot scraper doesn't need to look to know if it's serious. You just listen. 3 seconds of noise, no explosion, no rising steam pressure. You're fine. Probably. The heat is worse today. It always is after the ship's been at full throttle. You imagine the boiler like a furious tea kettle on a vendetta. They say it can reach 400 degrees in some parts of the flue, though no one's exactly volunteered to crawl in with a thermometer. Historians still argue whether those temperature estimates are accurate or just exaggerated by men who came out looking like roasted hamsters. Your bandana is soaked. You adjust it over your nose again, which does nothing. It's like trying to filter lava with a tea bag. You've developed a technique over time. Breathe shallow, chew steam, blink slowly. If you pass out, make sure you fall in the direction of the ladder. There's a sort of dark humor among the engine crew about that. If you collapse uphill, at least the rats will have to work harder. Your coworker Jeb slides past you, trailing his own haze of sweat and curses. Jeb has 2 teeth and 1 lung, and he's still faster than you. He's been scraping soot for 13 years. Nobody knows why. He says he once dreamed of becoming a baker. Now he jokes that he is a baker. He just works in a meat oven. You knew? He croaks, though he's asked you this before. No, you rasp. He nods solemnly. Neither am I. And that's it. A full conversation by soot scraper standards. As you both work, you hear the whistle. A long, shrill note that means someone's late for rotation, or missing, or unconscious. The hierarchy down here doesn't have much room for nuance. You either show up or you get replaced, preferably before your body gets cold. The ventilation system, such as it is, consists of small grates and hopeful thinking. A crank-powered fan somewhere up top wheezes in the corner, barely circulating anything except the scent of industrial despair. The real killer isn't even the soot, it's the carbon monoxide. You don't smell it, you don't see it, but when your vision starts swimming and your legs feel like custard, you know it's paying a visit. Some ships gave scrapers little canaries, like miners. You've got Jeb. If Jeb falls over, you crawl faster. You sneak a sip from your flask. It's not water, it's vinegar. Sounds awful, tastes worse, but you've been told it helps cut through the grime in your throat. One of the Scottish lads swears it makes your lungs slippery. That might be science. Or it might be a side effect of the concussion he got last week. You keep scraping. Your arms move on their own now. Muscle memory. The soot doesn't come off in neat flakes. It peels like the skin of a sunburn, sticking to your scraper and rolling back on itself. It squeals sometimes when the heat shifts and metal pops against metal. One day, a piece of it cracked off like a knife and sliced your forearm open. You bled through your shirt. The engineer gave you a rag and said, "Don't drip on the flue." Some ships had double shifts. This one, just one long one. You work until the head engineer says stop, or until someone collapses, or until the next port, which could be tomorrow or 3 weeks from now. Time is theoretical down here. You pause, leaning against a pipe that is frankly too hot to touch, but you do it anyway because it's either that or fall over. Your knees buckle, you don't fall. That's good. Falling would mean more bruises, and you're running out of unbruised parts. The floor isn't so much a floor as it is a suggestion. Metal plates, warped from heat, patched with wooden boards, all of it slick with grease and condensation. You walk like a newborn giraffe. Every step is a gamble. You once saw a man slip and slam his face into the bulkhead. He lost 2 teeth and was back to work in an hour. The boiler doesn't wait. Above you, Somewhere, passengers sip tea and discuss the weather. You haven't seen the sky in days, maybe weeks. It could be raining, it could be sunny. The only forecast you care about is whether the engine stays running and the steam stays inside the pipes. One of the boys starts singing, badly, something about home. It echoes weirdly in the engine room, getting eaten by steam and clanking before it reaches you fully. Still, it's nice. A reminder that there's a world outside this iron tomb. You hum along, out of tune and out of breath. Eventually, the bell rings. Lunch. You stop scraping and crawl backward out of the flue. The light outside blinds you for a second. Not actual daylight, of course. Just a gas lamp flickering behind a greasy pane. But still. A change in color feels like a vacation. You pull off your gloves. Underneath, your hands are pale, wrinkled, and shaking. They smell like ash and iron. You rub them on your shirt, which doesn't help. The shirt smells worse. You sit on a crate. Jeb hands you something wrapped in newspaper. You unwrap it carefully. Bread, a smear of lard, and a pickle. A delicacy. You eat slowly, savoring the crunch. It's the only crunch you want in your mouth today. Above you, the engine groans. Lunch breaks 15 minutes. Then it's back into the flue. The soot waits for no one. You finish lunch with all the joy of someone chewing cardboard dipped in axle grease. But hey, it's warm, and it didn't move when you bit it, which already makes it a 4-star meal in soot scraper terms. You set the crust down on the edge of your crate, and a rat immediately makes eye contact with you, like it's negotiating custody. You nudge the crust toward it. Consider it a peace offering. Then it's back to the engine room. The ladder down groans under your weight. Not because you're heavy. Let's be honest. You've probably lost 10 pounds in sweat this week alone, but because the ship itself is tired. Everything here is tired. The bolts, the gears, your spine. All of it just holding on by stubbornness and steam. The door to the boiler opens like the mouth of an angry beast. You squint against the light. It's not fire. It's not even quite flame. It's more like raw heat, in its purest, most judgmental form. Like the universe itself is whispering, you made choices, and they led you here. The chief fireman waves you in. He doesn't speak. He rarely does. His eyebrows do most of the talking now, and at the moment they're saying, scrape faster. You step over the threshold, and it hits you instantly. The air inside the engine room isn't just hot, it's wrong. It's heavy and sticky, and somehow it vibrates. Your clothes cling to you like desperate exes. Every pore on your body opens in protest. Here, inside the belly of the ship, the engine room lives and breathes. Massive pistons drive up and down like iron fists pounding into the earth. Flywheels spin like deranged hula hoops. The crankshaft turns with a rhythm that seems ancient and furious. You could be inside a mechanical cathedral. If the cathedral was powered by fire and nightmares. The noise is deafening. You don't just hear it, you feel it. It rattles your ribs, shakes your teeth, and makes your thoughts hum in disharmony. Conversation? Forget it. If you want to communicate, you point, you yell, or you just hope the other guy reads your panicked expression correctly. One of the engine men tosses you a bundle of rags. Not for cleaning, for holding. The metal you touch down here is molten. Not visibly glowing, but close enough that if you brush it barehanded, you'll be wearing a skinless mitten for the next week. The rag is a poor defense, like trying to hug a volcano with a dish towel. But it's better than nothing. Marginally. You move toward the main flue. It's time for round 2. This time, the scrape is deeper. The soot is packed like bitter snowdrifts along the steel walls. You gouge it off in ribbons, some curling like black licorice, some snapping off in brittle chunks. It all ends up in the bucket behind you, which is already full and somehow heavier than guilt. You'll need to empty it soon. You don't ask where it all goes. You know, overboard, most of it, dumped into the sea like the engine's dark thoughts. Occasionally, some of it's reused. For what? You've never been entirely clear. Maybe to stuff mattress ticking for passengers who've been particularly rude to the staff. You blink sweat out of your eyes. It stings. Not just salt, but soot particles. Tiny shards of the ship's dirty soul, now wedged under your eyelids. There's no relief. You'd wipe your face, but your hands are worse. You're a human chalkboard smeared in damp ash. And then it happens. Your foot slips. Just a moment. A twitch of imbalance. The floor has a sheen of oil, and your boot skates sideways like a slapstick gag in a silent film. You stumble. Arms out. The scraper clatters. Your shoulder slams into a hot pipe. Pain. Immediate electric. You bite your lip hard enough to draw blood. You don't scream, though. There's no point. No one would hear it over the boiler's monstrous song, and even if they did, well, what then? Sympathy? There's none to spare. Just a barked, "Watch it," from someone nearby, and a nod of acknowledgement when you keep working anyway. You rub your shoulder, the skin already pinking, a burn that will blister by nightfall, and you keep scraping, because that's the job. Historians still debate whether soot scrapers were officially considered part of the engineering crew or merely unskilled labor with a death wish. Records from shipping companies at the time are vague, possibly because no one wanted to write down, "We hire people to crawl inside dragons and rub their stomachs clean." You find your rhythm again. Scrape, twist, dump, scrape, twist, dump. You hum, partly to keep pace, partly to distract yourself from the fact that your fingertips are going numb. That might be heat stroke, or nerve damage, or just Tuesday. You remember a story Jeb told once about a guy named Callahan. Went into the flue during rough weather. Ship rolled, he got pinned by a shifting beam, stuck there for 2 hours. When they pulled him out, his beard was singed to the skin. He went home, grew flowers, never went near a ship again. You don't know if it's true, but the way Jeb said it, with that faraway look like he wished it had been him, you believe enough. Eventually, your bucket is full again. You crawl out, shoulders groaning in protest. Every joint in your body creaks. You think you've invented a new sound. Crack, squelch, wheeze. The symphony of the forgotten working class. You empty the soot over the chute. A great black cloud puffs into the wind, sailing into the sea like a reverse snowstorm. Some of it lingers in the air, swirling lazily before settling back onto your boots. The engine room is a loop. What leaves always comes back. You glance at the clock. 2 hours until your rotation ends. 2 more hours of scraping, sweating, and breathing air that's technically legal, but morally questionable. You roll your neck, which pops like popcorn. A small luxury. Then, you pick up your scraper, and you head back into the heat, because no one else is going to do it for you. The scraper in your hand has become an extension of your body now, one that's heavy, blunt, and gives you repetitive strain injuries. You grip it like it holds your last shred of dignity, which, let's face it, it might. It's scratched and slightly bent, with a handle that's been wrapped and rewrapped in rags so many times, it looks like it's recovering from its own midlife crisis. The tools of the trade are laughably simple. A scraper, a bucket, maybe a chisel if you're fancy. There are no buttons, No gadgets, no backup systems, just a hunk of metal and sheer willpower. It's not that steamship companies couldn't afford better gear. It's just that they didn't need to. Labor was cheap, cheaper than a redesigned scraper. If one breaks, or you do, there's always someone else eager to step in. Desperate people don't ask for upgrades. And if you think you can take your sweet time with that soot, think again. There's a rhythm down here, a tempo, set not by you, but by the engines, the firemen, and the relentless hunger of the ship itself. Fall behind, and you'll hear about it. Not gently. There's no HR department in the boiler room, just a lot of yelling, and occasionally a thrown wrench. You drag the scraper along the inner flue wall again, this time hitting a particularly stubborn patch. It clings like gilt, thick and shiny. You jab at it with the metal edge, chips flying off and sticking to your neck like greasy confetti. It burns slightly. You ignore it. That's just part of the process. The bucket beside you is halfway full. Each scoop of soot lands with a soft thunk, like scooping warm ash into a metal tomb. You start thinking about how this is probably what your lungs look like right now, black, flaky, and vaguely toxic. But you stop yourself. That way lies madness, and you're already flirting with heat exhaustion. So let's not add existential dread. Above you, the ship groans again. You can feel it in the steel under your knees, a vibration that starts in the soles of your feet and travels up your spine like a particularly rude ghost. One of the pistons lets out a high-pitched whine. Someone curses in Irish. The engine kicks. You flinch instinctively, even though you've heard that noise 100 times before. Doesn't matter. It always sounds like something's about to explode. And sometimes it does. Historians still argue whether steamship explosions were more often caused by poor maintenance or human error. But one thing is universally agreed upon. If the boiler room starts making new noises, it's time to panic. You glance at your toolkit. Technically, it's just a rusted box filled with battered tools, oily rags, and a mysterious wrench that no one remembers using, but everyone is too afraid to throw away. It's covered in soot and something that might be dried soup or blood. You don't ask. There's also the emergency scraper, twice as heavy, and with a blunt edge that could double as a murder weapon. It's what you use if the flue's choked halfway shut and the ship's starting to lose power. Using it means giving up any hope of finesse and committing to sheer brute force. It also usually means bruised knuckles and a new scar or two. You eye it warily, but thankfully, today's soot hasn't reached DEFCON levels yet. You switch arms. The left one is cramping. The right one is already cramped, but at least it's experienced. You give it the nod, and back into the soot you go. A great black ribbon of carbon unspools before you, the byproduct of 1,000 shovelfuls of coal burned to push a floating iron box through the ocean. You've been told that soot is mostly carbon mixed with condensed water vapor, trace metals, and other things. You try not to think too hard about the other things. Especially after that time, Jeb swore he found a tooth in the flue. Just one. No explanation. You finish the section, and as you lean back to breathe, inasmuch as breathing is possible in this hot, aromatic soup of airborne particulates, you hear the dreaded clink. Your scraper has hit something metallic, not the flue wall, something else. You reach in with your hand and fish out a bolt. A large, recently dislodged bolt. Well, that's not good. You hold it up, squinting at it through the swirling steam. Still warm. probably from the overhead pipe that's been vibrating suspiciously all morning. You think about calling the engineer. Then you remember what happened. Last time someone reported a loose fitting. They got blamed for it. You tuck the bolt into your shirt pocket. Problem solved, right? You'll find it later and turn it in casually. Maybe say, "Hey, look what I spotted lying around," and act like you've saved the day. Or maybe you'll throw it into the ocean. Let Neptune deal with it. You turn to empty the bucket. Again, your back creaks, your knees pop. One of your fingers won't quite straighten anymore, but it still holds a scraper, so you're technically good to go. You think back to the training you received when you started this job, which is to say, none. Some older guy waved a scraper at you and said, "Don't touch the red pipes. Don't fall asleep in the flue. Don't argue with the firemen." And that was it. Orientation complete. Oh, and that fireman? He's glaring at you now. He points to the next flue. Your cue to keep going. You nod, lift your tool, and shuffle back toward the heat. The soot is never done. It always comes back. It builds while you rest. It hides in corners, thickens in layers, waits for you like an old enemy. And your only weapon is this bent metal rod and whatever energy you've managed to salvage from lunch. You crawl in again, one hand on the scraper, one hand steadying yourself. And in the dark, surrounded by heat and noise, and the ever-present scent of cooked misery, you whisper a small joke to yourself. At least I don't work in customer service. And then you start scraping again. You wedge yourself back into the flue, and this one's even narrower than the last. Who designed this? A masochist? A snake? You can't turn your head. You can barely breathe. Your elbows scrape against the hot, curved metal, and the only sound is the rasp of your own breath mixed with the ever-present heartbeat of the engine just a few feet away. There's no light in here. Not real light. Just the faintest orange glow bleeding through the seams of the boiler nearby, which is comforting in the same way a campfire is comforting when you're locked in a kiln. You reach forward with your scraper and start the same motion again. Dig, drag, flick. The soot falls in greasy clumps into your waiting bucket. It smells worse in this flue. Burnt oil, old socks, and something faintly acidic. You hope it's just your imagination. It's not. At some point, your left leg starts to fall asleep. You shift, bump your shoulder, and knock soot down the back of your collar. You freeze, mouth open. It's still hot. You feel it slither along your spine like a tiny demon made of ashes. You curse softly into your bandana, then carry on. What else are you going to do? You've learned not to panic in here. Panicking uses oxygen, and there's not a lot of that to spare. The air feels recycled, like it's already been through 5 other lungs and came out worse for the trip. You can't tell whether it's damp from condensation or from your own sweat being repurposed by the atmosphere. Either way, it smells like despair and overcooked cabbage. You reach a junction in the flue, a right angle, which means soot loves to pile up here. It's like the dust bunny graveyard. You brace yourself and shove the scraper in with all the elegance of a drunk walrus. It gets stuck. Of course it does. You wiggle it, curse it, then lean in and jerk hard. And just like that, you're face to face with a rat. It's not dead. It's not exactly alive either. It looks at you with the vacant gaze of something that once had dreams. Maybe it wanted to be a deck rat. Maybe it just wanted to nibble biscuits in peace. But now it's fossilized in a layer of soot like an accidental museum exhibit. You stare at it. It stares back. You decide to name it Jeffrey. Jeffrey the Soot Rat. A noble soul. You poke around the poor thing, dislodge the chunk it was resting on, and Jeffrey crumbles into charcoal bits. Farewell, friend. You were flammable. You keep scraping. Historians still argue whether soot buildup was the leading cause of steamship engine inefficiency, or whether it merely contributed to a long list of failings. What's not up for debate? The fact that ignoring it could lead to overheating, engine strain, and on more than one memorable occasion, explosions. So here you are, prevention incarnate, scraper of soot, savior of boilers, covered in grime and unspoken rage. The heat shifts suddenly. A blast of hot air rushes through the flue, blasting your face like someone opened the door to an oven mid preheat. It knocks your bandana loose. You gasp, bad idea. Your lungs fill with air that tastes like burning toast and funeral incense. You cough so hard your ears ring, your eyes water, your head swims. You blink hard, trying to reorient yourself, but everything's spinning like a carnival ride invented by sadists. You back out a bit, flop to your side, and suck in slightly less awful air. You close your eyes for a second too long and hear a voice, Jeb's, yelling something from outside the flue. You manage to reply, mostly by groaning. A hand grabs your ankle, pulls. It's Jeb. You slide backward like a worm in reverse. Your bucket tips. Soot spills everywhere. You collapse halfway out the flue, limbs trembling, heart pounding like a tiny panicked bird inside your chest. You're overheating, Jeb grunts, tossing you a damp cloth. It's probably clean by this ship's standards. You press it to your face. It's lukewarm. Feels like heaven. Thanks, you wheeze. He nods. Doesn't say anything else. Doesn't have to. He's been there. He lives there. After a few minutes of sitting slumped against the wall like a forgotten mop, you gather the strength to stand. You wipe your face again. Your bandana is hanging around your neck like a defeated necktie. You retie it, sip vinegar from your flask, and, God's help you, crawl back into the flue. Because soot doesn't scrape itself. This next patch is stickier. You don't know why. Maybe the coal was wet. Maybe it's mixing with oil. Maybe the ship's just in a particularly vengeful mood today. Either way, it comes off in globs that smear instead of flake. Your scraper drags like it's moving through glue. You curse the entire Industrial Revolution under your breath. It's so tight in here. Your shoulders scrape both walls. Your breath echoes. You swear you can hear your own heartbeat. You've learned not to dwell on that. It makes the space feel smaller, and it's already barely bigger than a coffin, lined with hot metal and bad decisions. You wonder how many people have died in flues like this. Not metaphorically, literally, passed out, got stuck, fell asleep from exhaustion and never woke up. Probably more than anyone wants to admit. Probably more than the shipping companies ever wrote down. Eventually, you reach the end of the flue section. You've scraped it clean. It glistens slightly in the steam, like a disgusting art project. You back out, dragging your bucket. Your shirt is soaked. Your face is black. Your legs feel like boiled noodles. You climb out, collapse on the floor, and laugh. Because what else are you going to do? Jeb hands you a lump of something. Lunch number 2, he says. It's bread. Mostly, you bite into it. It crunches. Not in the good way. Probably coal dust. You chew anyway, and as the engine groans and the boiler hisses and the soot waits patiently in the next flue over, you whisper to no one, "This is fine," and then you get up, pick up your scraper, and do it all over again. You think, just for a second, that you're getting used to the heat. Then the boiler lets out a low humph, a lazy exhale of scalding air, and your eyebrows singe again. They never grow back the same. A few of the older scrapers walk around with permanent expressions of surprise thanks to heat damage. One guy named Duncan has exactly half an eyebrow on one side and a small charred bald patch above his ear that he swears makes him more aerodynamic. It doesn't. You dab your face with your sleeve, instantly regretting it. The fabric is soaked, gritty, and smells like it's been used to marinate despair. You're essentially giving yourself a facial in soot and sour sweat, a spa day in hell. The truth is, the heat down here isn't like anything you've ever felt. It doesn't just sit on your skin, it reaches inside you, creeps into your bones, warms your teeth. You once bit into a piece of bread and thought it was toasted. But no, that was just your mouth radiating like a furnace. The pipes hiss and groan like they're in pain. You know how they feel. There's no breeze, no draft, no hint of relief. Just the oppressive, ever-present warmth of boiling metal and the delicate fragrance of overworked machinery. Some days, you can even hear the engine complaining, a kind of groaning growl that sounds alarmingly like something alive, something hungry. You glance at your fellow scrapers. They look like coal gremlins, faces darkened, eyes half lidded from fatigue. No one talks much. There's nothing to say. You all know the routine. You all know the smells. Sweat, soot, and that particular scent that means someone got a bit too close to a steam pipe and left a little forearm skin behind. You've done it too. Everyone has. Steam doesn't announce itself. It slips from the valve like a ghost and hisses past your hand just long enough to leave a red streak of regret. The burns don't hurt at first, just a sharp sting, then numbness, then blisters later that night. While you're trying to sleep in your overheated bunk, you wish you could describe the temperature here in degrees, but the thermometer melted 2 weeks ago. They say the boiler room averages around 120 degree Fahrenheit, a 49 degree, but that's just ambient. Crawl into the flue and it shoots past 160. And if you're working near the boiler casing, let's just say it's the only place you can get a full body sauna experience and heat stroke at the same time. Historians still argue whether this kind of engine room heat was survivable long term or simply endured in short, sweaty bursts. Judging by your current state, lightheaded, nauseous, and questioning your life choices, you vote for barely endured. You sip from your flask again. The vinegar is lukewarm now, tastes like punishment. Still, it clears your throat enough to let you cough productively. A thick glob of black phlegm lands near your boot and hisses softly as it hits the floor. You don't even flinch. A bell rings in the distance. 2 short clangs. That's the signal to check steam pressure. You glance at the gauge out of habit. The needle's dancing just beneath the red line, twitching like it knows you're watching. That twitch means something. It means one of the fires is running hotter than expected, or someone shoveled too much coal, or, your least favorite option, the safety valve's acting up again. You hope it's coal. You pray it's coal. The last time the safety valve got stuck, it let out a shriek that turned your legs to jelly. You'd been standing right next to it, and the blast of steam had narrowly missed your head. You smelled like boiled ham for a week, and not in a good way. You walk past the fireman on duty, who's busy feeding one of the massive furnace mouths. The doors swing open to reveal a blinding inferno, orange, writhing flames licking up at coal like it owed them money. He turns, face slick with sweat, and gives you a nod. Not friendly, just A nod of recognition. You're both survivors. For now. The fire pokers clank. The shovels scrape. And you head to the back of the room where a new section of the flue awaits. You pause at the entrance. It's radiating heat like a living creature. You wonder, briefly, if heat could gain sentience. If this flue resents you for trying to clean it. You wouldn't blame it. You duck in. Inside, it's worse. It always is. The walls feel closer. The air is thicker. The soot is layered like old wallpaper. Patches of soft, flaky blackness, overlain with newer, stickier grime. You scrape methodically, as much by feel as by sight. Halfway through, you hear a thud outside the flue. Then silence. Then a muffled curse. You freeze. Another thud. This time followed by a hiss. Steam, fast and sharp. You crawl backward instinctively, breath catching in your throat. As you emerge, you see the problem. A gasket's blown near the secondary valve. Steam is spraying sideways across the walkway, fogging up the entire area. A younger scraper, maybe 17, maybe just short, has hit the floor, trying to avoid the blast. He's not moving. Jeb and the firemen leap into action, dragging him away from the pipe and into a cooler corner. You follow, unsure if you're helping or just in the way. He's breathing. Barely. His face is beet red, and one sleeve is soaked in something that isn't water. You know that color. You've seen it on yourself. Someone presses a wet rag to his neck. Jeb mumbles something about taking him topside. You know what that means. It's a rare sentence. Sacred even. Topside. To the fresh air. The sky. A place with shadows that aren't shaped like pistons. You watch them carry the kid away, his legs dangling, boots leaving smudges on the floor. You don't know his name. You've probably shared meals, maybe even handed him a scraper once. Doesn't matter. He won't be back. And the silence that follows is awkward. Not mournful. Not dramatic. Just a quiet understanding among the crew. It could have been any of you. The fireman barks the usual. Back to work. And like good soot-coated ants, you return to your flues. To the scraping. To the heat. Because the engine doesn't stop. It never does. You get used to the choking. Sort of. You stop noticing where the soot ends and your breath begins. The line blurs until every inhale tastes like coal, copper, and regret. It's not just smoke. It's microdust, carbon particles, and the pulverized ghosts of yesterday's fires. Every breath in the boiler room is an act of rebellion against your own lungs. You can feel it building in your throat again. That tickle, the slow creeping tightness. Then it hits, a hacking cough that rattles your ribs and leaves a trace of something solid in your mouth. You spit it out. It's black. Naturally. You nod to yourself like that's perfectly fine. You're basically a walking chimney now. Human HVAC. Jeb once called it the coal cough. He said if you weren't hacking up soot by Thursday, you weren't scraping hard enough. You weren't breathing in deep enough. You weren't, and this was his exact phrase, earning your inner shadow. You're not sure if that's poetry or early stage delusion. Possibly both. There's no fresh air down here. The only ventilation comes from a system of wheezing ducts and one fan that sounds like it's held together with prayer and string. Someone tried patching it with a piece of biscuit tin last month. It helped for about 3 hours. Now it just adds a rattling counterpoint to the orchestra of clangs and hisses. Everything in this place is covered in a thin film of black powder. The floor crunches underfoot like walking on burnt sugar. Your boots leave prints with every step. You could probably track a man down here just by following the fading trail of his socks. If you ever lost someone, Check the smudges on the wall, handprints, finger streaks, the occasional forehead dent from someone nodding off and headbutting a bulkhead. And then there's the itch. It starts under your shirt, moves to your neck. You scratch it, and the soot shifts like sandpaper over raw skin. You've washed, of course, or tried to. But water only does so much. The stuff clings to you, gets into pores, folds, eyebrows, fingernails. You once found soot in your belly button and considered writing a short story about it. You can't stop the itching. You just adapt. Like the ship, like the engine, like the rats. Speaking of rats, there's one now, trotting across a beam like it owns the place. You nod at it, it nods back. You've achieved mutual respect. You both know who really runs the boiler room. The soot doesn't just cling to skin, it gets in the food, the air, the water. Take meals, for example. You sit on your usual upturned crate, legs splayed out, hands dangling over your knees like you've aged 40 years in 40 minutes. Someone hands you a tin plate. Today's meal, bread, more bread, something that once saw a vegetable, and meat. You're not asking. You take a bite. The texture's gritty. Naturally, there's no escaping it. Every meal comes with a complimentary sprinkling of coal dust. You joke that the chef pre-seasons everything with engine room essence. Nobody laughs anymore. Historians sometimes debate how nutritious these meals actually were, and the answer, in your expert opinion, is barely. You've read in some old pamphlet that ship workers needed upwards of 4,000 calories a day just to avoid collapse. You're probably getting half that, and most of it's from lard, starch, and accidental soot intake. There's also a strange aftertaste to everything. Not quite metallic, not quite burnt, like if someone roasted sadness over a campfire and served it with a side of despair. Still, it's hot. And when you're running on 6 hours of sleep spread across 3 days and half a bottle of vinegar, hot is good. You finish eating, wipe your mouth with the back of your hand, and realize, yep, you just smeared a streak of black grease from ear to chin. You're not even surprised. At this point, your face is less skin and more interactive soot map. You glance down the corridor. The fireman's already glaring. Jeb's back on his feet. The engine groans like it's hungry again. And your bucket is, of course, still waiting. Back to work. This flue's different. Slightly angled, makes scraping awkward. You can't quite get the right leverage and your arm keeps bumping a hot valve. You curse. Shift. Scrape again. It's a game of patience, pain, and positioning. Kind of like yoga, but hotter, dirtier, and with significantly more swearing. About halfway through, you hear something. Not the usual clanks. Something softer. A voice? You pause. It's singing, faint. Off-key. Maybe Russian? Maybe Polish? You can't tell. One of the stokers up front, humming to himself while tossing coal into the firebox. You don't know the words, but the tune's strangely comforting. Human. Fragile even. You hum along. For 10 glorious seconds, it feels like you're somewhere else. Somewhere with sky, with wind, with trees that aren't made of iron. And then your scraper jams under a rivet and you're yanked back to reality with a burst of pain up your elbow. You grunt. Pull back. Reset. The flue's not clean yet. Historians still argue whether soot had psychological effects over time, whether the isolation, the heat, and the blackness worked some quiet damage on the minds of men who scraped it day after day. You don't need a degree to answer that. You just look at Jeb's 1,000-yard stare. or the way someone laughs a little too long at a bad joke about coal sandwiches. You've had dreams lately. Not nightmares exactly, just weird ones. You're scraping soot in your sleep. The flue goes on forever. You reach the end, only to find another flue, then another. Infinite metal tunnels stretching beyond comprehension. You wake up exhausted, arms sore from sleep scraping. You once told Jeb, he just said, means you're doing it right. You're not sure if that's good or not. Eventually the bell rings again. End of shift. You drop your scraper with a thunk, slide your bucket aside, collapse onto the floor, limbs splayed, eyes closed. The heat hasn't let up, but you've adapted. Or maybe just wilted. You sit there a while, let the engine's hum vibrate through your spine, let the sweat cool, just enough to make your shirt feel like wet cardboard. And you smile, because for now, just now, you're not scraping, and that's enough. You wake up exactly where you passed out, on the warm steel floor of the engine room, cheek pressed to a bolt head, one leg half numb, and your mouth tasting like someone tried to make coffee using charcoal and despair. Welcome back. It's not technically your shift yet, but the ship's never really off duty, and neither are you. You sit up slowly, blinking the soot from your eyelashes, your body creaking like the bulkhead beside you. You can't tell how long you were out. 10 minutes? An hour? Time is more of a concept down here, like fresh air or health insurance. Then you hear it, the clang of the boss's boots. He's not a subtle man. The chief engineer strides in like he's late for a duel, mustache bristling with the authority of someone who hasn't scraped a single flue in years. His boots are polished. His shirt's white, or at least was this morning. He smells faintly of tobacco and management. You stand, mostly out of reflex. Your spine makes a sound like someone shuffling a deck of damp cards. Pressure's running hot, he barks. Not to you specifically, to everyone, to the air, to the spirits of all the scrapers who've come before you and probably still haunt this ship. Which one's slacking? No one answers. Because that's the game. He knows the pressure's high because someone up top wanted to make up time and told the firemen to burn hotter. You know it. The firemen know it. Even the rats know it. But the blame always rolls downhill, and the lowest step on that particular staircase is you, the soot scraper. You keep your mouth shut. That's rule one. Never volunteer information. Never make eye contact. The only thing you're allowed to offer voluntarily is your labor. And even that's a bit too enthusiastic for his taste. He stomps off, muttering about efficiency and lazy coal monkeys, which you assume is meant as an insult, but honestly just sounds kind of adorable. Jeb wanders over, nodding toward the gauges. Bet you 3 crusts. He blames us again by dinner. Already has, you mutter. You look over at the bell. A fireman yanks the chain and it clangs twice. Time to rotate. You grab your scraper, again. Before you re-enter the flue, you pass the inspection table. It's a grim little corner of the boiler room, covered in bits of broken gear, spare bolts, and a logbook that may or may not be written in actual English. The chief engineer loves his logbook, writes everything down like it matters. As if Soot ever respected documentation. You glance at the chart. It's mostly scribbles, but you spot your own name, or at least your initials, followed by the words, inconsistent efficiency. You smile grimly. That's code for still alive, but slower than we'd like. The hierarchy down here is unspoken but ironclad. At the top is the captain, who never sets foot below deck. Then the officers, who only visit when something's broken. Then the engineers, who speak mostly in threats and pipe wrenches. The firemen, who feed the beast. And then, you, the scraper, bottom of the ladder, below the coal, below the bilge rats, You're what gets sent in when something needs doing that no one else wants to touch, literally. And the pecking order isn't just social, it's spatial. The closer you are to the boiler, the less you're paid, and the more you're ignored. You once tried to report a leaking valve. You were told, and this is a direct quote, if it hasn't exploded yet, it isn't a priority. You think about that a lot, especially when the pipes groan in that way that suggests they're trying to make a point. You crawl back into the flue. This one is narrower, slicker. Someone, probably that new kid who passed out last week, tried to clean it too fast and left half the soot behind in angry ridges. It's always worse cleaning up after someone else's shortcut. You mutter a few choice words into your bandana and start scraping. The heat here is sharp. Not just hot, sharp. Like walking through a curtain of knives made of air. Your knuckles crack. Your elbows scrape. You wish for water. But all you've got is a flask of vinegar and a deeply sarcastic attitude. Something drips from above. You hope it's condensation. You pray it's condensation. It is not. A glob of mystery goo hits your shoulder and sizzles slightly. Probably grease. Possibly something alive. You scrape harder, hoping to finish this section before the flue decides to actively attack you. Behind you, the engine kicks up a notch. The vibrations change pitch. Less hum, more thrum. You feel it in your teeth. The kind of vibration that makes you clench your jaw instinctively, like you're trying to hold your skull together. The chief fireman walks past. He's a big man with arms like iron girders and a permanent frown etched into his face, like someone carved it there with a cold chisel. He never talks unless it's important. He stops next to your flue and says one word, faster. You don't look at him. Just nod. Scrape harder. Your arms burn. Your eyes sting. You taste soot in the back of your throat and keep going. Historians still argue whether the relentless discipline of steamship engine rooms helped drive industrial efficiency or just drove men to quiet madness. The answer, from your current perspective, is yes. You finish the flue, pull yourself out, and sit on the floor. The steel is hot, always hot, but it's solid, and that's enough for now. A hand appears in front of you. Jeb, holding out a mug. Tea, he grunts. You take it. It's not tea. It's hot water with something floating in it. Could be bark, could be a sock, but it's warm and vaguely comforting. You drink it. Swish it around like it's a fine wine. Wipe your mouth with your sleeve and make a mental note to never smell that sleeve again. You catch your reflection in a puddle. You look like you've been dragged through a furnace by a very grumpy octopus. Your hair is damp. Your face is streaked. Your eyes are tired. But you're still here, still scraping, still under the gaze of bosses and bells and blisters. And as the next shift bell clangs again and you rise to your feet, scraper in hand, you tell yourself the same quiet lie you tell every day. Just one more flue. The mess hall is a joke. It's not even a hall, just a slightly wider part of the passageway, with enough stools to seat half the crew at once, which works out fine because the other half are usually unconscious or too nauseous to eat. The table is a plank balanced on barrels. One leg is shorter than the others, so the whole thing rocks gently, like it's remembering its time as a lifeboat. You slide into your spot, exhausted, sore, and ready to eat something that might not actively try to kill you. On the menu tonight, hard bread, greasy meat stew, and what might be a potato if you squint at it sideways. You dig in. The first bite crunches. Now, that's not unusual. The bread always crunches, but it's not the crisp, golden crunch of a freshly baked roll. No, It's the gritty, dental regret crunch of soot. Again, you pause, peer into the slice. There, glinting in the stale crumb, is a smudge of black dust. You look around. Everyone else is eating, jaws moving slowly like coal-powered chewing machines. They don't care. Or maybe they stop noticing. You sigh, shake the soot out, keep chewing. Every bite tastes like steam, metal, and yesterday's shovel. The meat is chewy, a bit rubbery, and swimming in a gravy that could lubricate an axle. Still, it's hot, and it's food. You eat it all, because tomorrow might not come with rations. Someone across from you cracks a tooth. He spits the chunk into his palm, mutters, "Third one this month," and keeps eating with the other side of his mouth. You give him a respectful nod. That's the spirit. The cook lumbers in from the side galley. He's a thick man, with arms like tree trunks and the temperament of wet rope. He doesn't speak much, mostly grunts. His apron is stained with mysteries and smells faintly of kerosene and boiled onions. He drops a bucket on the table with a thunk. Inside, more stew, or something stew adjacent. No one asks questions. Asking questions gets you skipped next round. You glance at the drinks tray. Tea. Sort of. It's the color of rust and tastes like oversteeped bark. Still, it's hot, and it helps cut through the grit in your throat. You sip, hold it, swallow. The warmth spreads through your chest like a very polite fire. You start to relax. Just a little. And then the noise comes. Ding, clang. It echoes down the hallway. Sharp and purposeful. Inspection. You see a few men flinch. One even mutters a curse into his bread. Everyone starts wiping their hands and sitting up straighter. Not that it matters. No amount of posture can hide the fact that you're covered in soot and smell like a burnt boot. The chief engineer appears like a storm cloud with legs. He walks the line, slowly, eyes scanning each man like he's choosing a suspect in a lineup. He sniffs once, grunts, taps the stew bucket with a knuckle. Then, without warning, he grabs your mug. He sniffs it. He sniffs you. You blink, unsure of what's expected. He leans in, says nothing, just stares for 3 solid seconds, then turns and walks on. You exhale like you've just avoided a duel. Lucky, Jeb whispers. What would have happened, you ask? He'd have made you clean the flue casing solo in double shift. You nearly drop your spoon. The flue casing is legendary. Long, narrow, and sloped like a greasy playground slide, but with more chance of third-degree burns. It's where soot goes to retire and where scrapers go to weep. The rest of the meal passes in silence, punctuated by the occasional cough, plate scrape, and exhausted chewing. No one talks about the day, or the burns, or the accident with the fan belt. Yesterday, that took off 3 fingernails and almost a whole ear. Instead, you get the classics. Jeb tells a story about a man who once got so coated in soot that he tried to clean himself with coal oil, lit a pipe afterwards, was buried in a bucket. Someone else recounts a tale about a phantom stoker who haunts the engine room at night, whispering safety violations into your ear. Nobody believes it, but nobody laughs either. You finish eating. Your stomach protests, but in a slow, satisfied way, like a dog finally settling into its bed of nails. Now comes the worst part, sleep. Because sleeping in the lower deck is not rest, it's tactical unconsciousness. You trudge to your bunk, a narrow wooden shelf with a mattress that might once have been padding, now flat as a pancake made of despair. The sheets are scratchy, damp, and vaguely alive. You lie down, fully clothed. No point getting undressed. Everything smells the same anyway. The bunk is wedged between two pipes. One hisses occasionally, the other gurgles. You try not to think about what's inside it. The lights dim, barely. One of the bulbs flickers like it's contemplating retirement. You close your eyes and try to drift off. And that's when you hear it, scurrying, tiny feet, tiny claws, rats. You sigh, turn over, and accept your fate. If you're lucky, they'll just use your legs as a shortcut to the biscuit barrel. If you're unlucky, you'll wake up to one licking the soot off your boots. Either way, the alarm bell will ring in 4 hours. You'll get up, eat another crunchy meal, pick up your scraper, and do it all again. But for now, you let the rocking of the ship lull you towards sleep, or something like it. One last cough rattles from your chest. You smile. You've survived dinner. The morning starts with a whistle, shrill, sharp, and approximately 4 inches from your skull. You bolt upright in your bunk, hitting your head on the pipe above you. Again, it's like a rude handshake to begin each day. You rub your forehead, which is already covered in yesterday's soot, and swing your legs over the edge. The floor is damp. You don't ask why. Your shirt is still damp too, still crusted in places. You sniff it. It hisses back. You throw it on anyway. There's no laundry service on this ship. If you want clean clothes, you bring extras. You didn't. And even if you did, they'd be dirty within an hour anyway. You've heard tales of men trying to wash their uniforms in engine water. What came back up looked like it fought a squid and lost. So you settle for what everyone settles for, wiping the worst of the grime off with a rag that could legally be classified as an environmental hazard. You shuffle toward the washing station. Station is generous. It's a corner of the boiler room with a bucket of lukewarm water, a bar of soap the size of a coin, and a mirror that hasn't shown a true reflection since the Crimean War. You dip your hands in. The water turns gray immediately. You splash your face. Bad idea. The water smells like iron and old socks. You resist the urge to gag. You rinse again, this time more gently, and watch the streams of black drip down your neck and into your collar. Congratulations. You've just made yourself slightly less flammable. Someone nearby groans. It's not a specific groan, more of a communal, existential noise. You recognize it. You've made that sound. You've heard that sound. It's the sound of a man wondering if he's actually still asleep and having a fever dream about industrial labor. You pick up your toothbrush. It's a stick with some bristles tied on with string. You scrub. The taste of soot is still there. Probably always will be. One guy tried brushing with vinegar once. His teeth squeaked for a week, and his gums looked like they'd lost a bar fight. You shuffle to breakfast, which is also dinner, and lunch. In fact, it's the same food every time. Today's highlight: oatmeal, thick, gray, and with the consistency of ceiling plaster. You stir it trying to find the warm spots. You find a lump, possibly a raisin. You decide to believe it's a raisin. You eat quickly. There's a kind of efficiency in shoveling lukewarm mush into your mouth while avoiding eye contact with men who have soot permanently embedded in their eyelids. Someone says, morning, but it comes out more like myrrh. There's no coffee. There's brew. A hot liquid in a dented tin mug that smells vaguely of burned acorns and tastes like regret. You drink it anyway. Anything warm is a blessing, even if it might also be slowly poisoning you. Back to work. Your boots squelch slightly. You walk with a tilt, partly from muscle fatigue, partly because one heel is half melted. You consider fixing it. Then remember you need tools, and time, and hope. The fireman is already at the furnace, feeding coal like a mother bird feeds chicks, aggressively and without eye contact. He nods at you. This is considered warmth. The scraper leans against the wall, waiting like a faithful dog. You pick it up. Its handle is slick from use. You wipe it with your sleeve. Doesn't help. Nothing helps. You start toward the flue. But first, you check your face. It's ritual now. You step up to the mirror. It's a warped piece of tin nailed to a support beam. You see only outlines, eyes, a nose, a streak where your cheek should be. You run your hand down your face. It comes back black. You smile anyway. This is your version of clean. Historians still debate whether boiler room hygiene standards were intentionally lax or simply impossible to enforce. Some argue that men working in constant soot and sweat couldn't be expected to stay sanitary. Others point out that diseases did run rampant aboard steamships, and it probably wasn't the lavender potpourri causing it. You believe in both. You pass a crewman, new, young, too clean. He gives you a half smile. You don't return it, not out of rudeness, just solidarity. That boy's smile will last another day, maybe two, then it'll fade like everyone else's, replaced by that permanent half scowl, half grimace that soot scrapers wear like a badge of survival. Someone sneezes, you all duck, because sneezes don't come alone. They bring company, coughs, aches, fevers. Down here, a common cold becomes uncommon real quick. There's a reason you sleep with a rag around your neck and keep vinegar in your flask. You reach the flue and sigh. It's open. Steam is rising from the edges, like breath from a dragon's mouth. You duck in. The heat hits you immediately, like a slap from a damp oven mitt. You crawl forward, back into the darkness, into the soot, into the endless rhythm. Scrape, scrape, pause, cough, wipe, scrape again. This one's worse than yesterday. More buildup, more flakes. You feel them falling on your arms, sticking to your skin, mixing with sweat until you're wearing a new kind of armor, made of fatigue and carbon. You pause halfway through to scratch your leg. Your sock moves. You freeze. You reach down slowly. Pull the fabric away. It's just a clump of soot, or possibly a tiny beetle. You choose to believe soot. Again, you resume scraping. Hours pass, or maybe it's just 40 minutes. It's impossible to tell. You don't have a watch. Even if you did, the glass would have fogged and cracked by now. At one point, you close your eyes, just for a second, and dream of water. Clear, cool water, washing your face, your hands, your soul. Then the flue creaks and a chunk of soot drops directly down your shirt collar. You're awake again, fully. You finish the section, crawl out and sit down. Legs stretched, face coated, eyebrows gone again. You reach for the bucket of water. Splash it over your arms. It turns black immediately. You pour more on your face. It runs down your neck like oil from an old engine. You lean back, resting your head against the metal wall. This is your bath. This is your spa. This is as clean as you'll ever get. And somehow, that's enough. The night shift is a special kind of punishment. You'd think things would quiet down after sunset. They don't. The engine doesn't sleep. The fire doesn't rest. The ship keeps lurching forward into the dark. And so do you, armed with a dull scraper and the knowledge that whatever comfort daylight might bring, it's a distant luxury now. You clock in, figuratively of course. There's no actual clock. Just the fireman tapping the wall twice and growling, "Your turn." You nod, because what else is there to do? You're not sure what time it is. Midnight? 1 in the morning? Time dissolves into heat and soot. The only thing you know is that everyone's quieter. The engine room at night isn't silent, it's just heavier, like the steel itself is holding its breath. The sounds change, the clangs become deeper, the hisses sharper. Even the rats walk slower, like they're trying not to disturb something ancient and asleep under the floorboards. You tighten your bandana and step toward the flue, but then you pause, because there's a new sound. A sort of low vibration, rhythmic, mechanical. You glance at the boiler. It's breathing. That's what it feels like. Not running, breathing. And you're inside its lungs. You shiver. Not from cold. You haven't been cold in weeks. But there's something about this hour. Something that gnaws at your edges. You're not just tired. You're unreal. You feel like a shadow of yourself, held together by sweat and stubbornness. You crawl into the flue. Again. This one's barely warm. That's worse. Because if it's cool, it means the engine's working too hard elsewhere. And that means something upstream is about to burst or give way. You don't like surprises. Not down here. Not with metal walls an inch from your nose and only one direction to crawl. You scrape. Slow, methodical, steady. It's easier at night in one way. No one's barking orders. But it's harder too, because now you're alone with your thoughts. And they're not friendly. You start hearing things. A whisper, maybe steam, a clang, probably the piston, a cough, definitely not yours. You freeze, back out of the flue slowly, heart hammering. It's Jeb. He's sitting on a crate, eyes half closed, mumbling into the air. You exhale, not a ghost, not this time. He's saying something about fruit. Peaches, apricots, something soft and sweet and absolutely not real. You let him be. Everyone's got their coping mechanisms. You pass the firebox. It's glowing. Soft red coals shifting in a lazy dance. You watch them for a second. Get lost in it. Think about fire the way poets do, alive, hungry, unpredictable. But to you, it's just a job. Just another thing to manage. Like blisters or boils or dreams. You lean against the wall. Close your eyes. For 10 seconds, maybe 20. And then the wall shudders. You jolt upright. Something's off. The rhythm of the engine is wrong. Normally it pulses, like a drumbeat, steady and angry. Now it's limping. Historians still argue whether 19th century steamship engines were marvels of engineering or disasters waiting to happen. You know the answer. They were both. You check the gauges. One's twitching. Another's vibrating. That's never good. You head to the auxiliary flue. It hasn't been cleaned in 2 days. You know this because your name is still written on the chart under pending. You sigh. In you go. This flue is tighter. Sharper. You think you feel something crawl over your hand, but chalk it up to nerves, or soot, or exhaustion. Your vision blurs slightly. That's normal now. You scrape, and try not to think about anything too real, like the fact that the boiler hasn't groaned in a while, or that your flask is empty, or that your heartbeat feels just slightly out of sync with your body. You hear the firemen call out something about pressure equalization. You don't reply. You just nod, even though he can't see you. You're not sure he exists anyway. In the dark, you think about home, wherever that was. A place with grass, maybe, or air that doesn't smell like iron soup. You remember the feel of rain on your face. You haven't felt rain in months. Down here, water only comes in 2 flavors, hot and unclean. Your thoughts drift towards sleep. You try to count the scrapes. 1, 2, 3. And then you're dreaming again, but you're not asleep. You dream with your eyes open. You dream about crawling forever, scraping forever, until you are soot, until you become part of the flue. You jolt again, out of it. Someone's shouting. Distant. You back out, blinking hard. A pipe has cracked. Steam is spraying across the far wall in a thin, angry line. Jeb is yelling for someone to shut it off. Another crewman's fumbling with a wrench. No one knows what to do exactly, but everyone moves because panic is the only thing faster than fire. The valve groans. Someone slams it shut. The hissing stops. Just like that, it's quiet again. You look around. Nobody's dead, just rattled. You feel your legs trembling. You sit down, shake the soot from your hands, and you laugh. Not because it's funny, but because it wasn't you. Not this time. You look around at the others, faces streaked with black, eyes wild in the lamplight. You're all in the same boat, literally and figuratively, trapped in this floating oven, waiting for the next thing to go wrong. You pick up your scraper, because the shift's not over, not yet. You head toward the next flue, and whisper to yourself, like a prayer, let it be an easy one. It won't be, but you go anyway. You know something's wrong when your gums start talking. Not literally, of course, but there's a dull ache creeping along your teeth, a soreness that wasn't there last week. Or maybe it was, but you've only just now paused long enough to notice. It's like your mouth is trying to send a message, one slow, pulpy pulse at a time. Your tongue presses against the inside of your cheek. Ouch. You prod a molar. It wiggles. You prod again. Definitely loose. You sigh. Scurvy. You knew it was coming. Everyone gets it eventually, unless they're sneaking lemons. And there are no lemons on this ship. There were, once, back in port. A whole crate of citrus, gleaming like golden coins. You remember the smell? Bright, sharp, joyful. They gave them to the officers. Naturally, you got a sniff when the wind shifted. Since then, nothing but meat, bread, stew, and if you're lucky, a potato boiled to the texture of a damp sponge. Your body isn't thrilled. You scratch at your wrist absently. The skin's dry, cracking. You wonder if that's from soot or dehydration, or the slow collapse of all your internal systems. Jeb wanders past, chewing something. Got a clove from the cook, he mumbles through one side of his mouth. Keeps the rot away. Does it? You ask. He shrugs. Don't know, but my mouth tastes like Christmas. You smile, then wince, because smiling also hurts. You return to your bucket, your ever-present, ever-sooty bucket. It's half full, optimistic term of crusted black flakes and sweaty despair. You glance at the mirror again, not to admire yourself. That ship sailed months ago. No, you're checking your lips. Still pink, barely, but your gums? They're starting to bleed. Just a little, especially when you chew anything firmer than oatmeal. You once bit into a biscuit and nearly lost a tooth. You blamed the biscuit, but deep down, you knew. Scurvy doesn't announce itself with drama. It whispers, sore legs, swollen joints, mood swings. You once saw a man start sobbing because someone used his rag to wipe a gauge. Full on weeping. Nobody laughed because we all knew. Historians still debate how widespread scurvy remained by the late 19th century. Technically, the science was there. Sailors knew citrus helped, but ships, especially commercial ones, cut corners. Lemons cost money. Bread didn't. And you? You were cheaper than both. You dig into your pocket. Still got that stale clove Jeb gave you last week. You pop it into your mouth. It tastes like wood and sadness, but it helps. A little. Just enough to mask the coppery tang in your saliva. The bell rings. Not the usual clang. This one's softer. Mealtime again. You think. You sit down with the others. Today's offering. Stew again. With something floating in it that might be a carrot. You stare at it like a mirage. It's gone before you can confirm. Someone else got it. You chew carefully, favoring the left side of your mouth. It feels like your molars are made of wet chalk. You don't even care what the meat is anymore. It could be shoe leather, could be rat, could be both. You eat because it's what's next. The fatigue is worse today. You feel it in your bones, like gravity has been turned up just for you. You drag yourself to the flue. It's long, narrow, familiar. You've been in this one before. You recognize the notch on the left wall where you dropped your scraper last week. It's still there. The flue feels warmer than usual. Not hotter, warmer, like it's remembering your body heat. You slide in. The world narrows. There's nothing but you, the scrape of metal, and the dull throb of your gums. You think about oranges, not metaphorically, literally. Oranges, juicy, cool, round, sweet. You'd sell your soul for one. You'd fight a sea monster. You'd definitely punch Jeb. You scrape and fantasize. A citrus daydream plays in your mind like a silent film. You peeling it, juice dribbling down your chin, the sting of vitamin C electrifying your bloodstream, your gums healing, your teeth cheering. You bump your head back to reality. You've hit the end of the flue. You back out, slow and shaky. The air outside feels cooler, but only because you've been half cooked inside an iron tube. You sit, you drink, not water, vinegar again. It cuts through the sludge in your throat and briefly distracts your mouth from the gum pain. You catch sight of someone sleeping in the corner. A new guy. His mouth is open. You can see his teeth, too white, too whole. You feel a flicker of envy. It passes, because soon he'll look like the rest of you. Cheekbones sharp, lips cracked, teeth wobbling like loose stones in a bag. Someone starts a song, a low hum, not words, just sound. It's an old tune, sailor-like, meant to pace the shovels and keep morale from falling straight through the hull. You hum along. It helps, kind of. Jeb sits beside you. Gum trouble? He asks, like he's asking if you've seen the weather. You nod. Same, he says, tapping his chin. Feels like I've got glass in there. You both laugh. Quiet, dry, tooth conscious. You lean back against the wall. It's hot, but your body's already accepted that as baseline. You close your eyes and imagine an orchard, not even real, just a sketch of one. Trees, leaves, fruit, and the taste of oranges. God, the taste. You reach up, touch your cheek. It feels tender. You think, one more week like this, and you'll need soup forever. You smile again, stupidly, because soup wouldn't be the worst thing. And besides, you're not dead yet. Not today. The boiler groans, not a little hiss, not the soft exhale of tired metal. A groan. Long, low, and full of warning. Like the ship herself just remembered she's made of pressure and bad decisions. You freeze mid-step. Jeb freezes too. Everyone freezes. It's not the kind of sound you hear and shrug off. It's the kind of sound that settles into your spine and says, you might want to be somewhere else right now. You look at the pressure gauge. The needle isn't pointing at red. It's tapping red. A nervous little tick, tick, tick against the top of the dial, as if it's trying to break through the glass and run for its life. You glance at the fireman. He's shoveling coal like his life depends on it, which, to be fair, it probably does. His shirt is soaked through. His boots squelch with every stomp. You wonder if he's even noticed the noise. Then the second groan comes, louder. This time the wall next to you shudders. You place a hand on it, more out of habit than logic, and feel it vibrate. Fast, uneven, wrong. You remember the stories. Everyone has them. The boiler on the Ardmore Queen that blew sideways through the engine room and took half the crew with it. The Merivale that overheated, cracked open like an egg, and sent molten metal raining down like a demon's confetti. Historians still argue whether boiler explosions were rare or underreported. You don't care. All you know is that you're one bad rivet away from becoming historical soot. You turn to Jeb. He's already moving. Valve check, he barks. You both sprint, not gracefully, not quickly, but with the desperate wobble of men who've slept 6 hours in 3 days and know exactly how fragile steel really is when it's angry. You reach the valve chamber, steam's hissing from the top vent. Not violently, but with that sharp edge, like it's thinking about escalation. Jeb grabs the release lever and throws it. Nothing happens. Again, you say, barely louder than the hiss. He pulls, grunts, still nothing. You both lean into it. Clank. The valve finally releases with a wheeze. The pressure gauge dips. The hiss slows. The groaning stops. Silence. Not true silence. There's always noise down here, but the kind of quiet that feels like exhaling after holding your breath for 10 minutes. You collapse against the wall. Jeb sits next to you, his hair soaked, his eyes wide. That was close, he mutters. You nod. You don't trust your voice. He pulls out his flask, offers it. You sip. It's not vinegar. It's skin. Burns like justice. You hand it back without a word. Someone farther down the corridor mutters, boiler ghosts again. You've heard that before. Superstition says every ship that runs too hot for too long ends up haunted. Not by dead sailors, by the ship herself. A soul made of steel and steam, angry at being pushed too hard. You're not sure you believe it. But when the pipes creak just right and the floor shifts under your feet, like a belly breathing, it's easy to imagine. You stand up slowly, muscles aching. Someone rings the inspection bell, because of course they do. The chief engineer storms in, red-faced and scowling. What was that? He snaps. Jeb shrugs. Valve seized. Why? You shrug. Old. Fix it, he grunts, then stomps off like he invented the concept of steam himself. You and Jeb get to work. Tools clang. Bolts turn. Your knuckles bleed a little. That's fine. If it's not bleeding, you're not fixing it right. The whole time you're listening, waiting. One more groan. One more wrong hiss. But for now, the engine has calmed. The boiler sighs, its temperature dropping back to its usual low roar. You start laughing, not because it's funny, because you survived. Every time I hear that sound, Jeb says, I think, well, this is it. I'm going to end up a smear on the wall. You nod. Wouldn't even need a burial. Just sweep me up with the soot. He chuckles. It's grim humor, but it's yours. The pressure gauge settles. You pat it like a loyal dog. For now, it's behaving. But you know better than to trust it. It's not if something breaks, it's when. The rest of the shift is quiet. Tense, but quiet. You go back to your flue. Back to scraping. But now you glance up every few minutes, listening, because the boiler groaned once. It'll do it again. They always do. You wake up mid-cough, not a polite little throat clear, but a lung-jarring, full-body hack that echoes off the steel walls of your bunk like gunfire. A perfect alarm clock. If your goal is to remind yourself you're still alive and still coated in industrial ash, your throat burns, your ribs ache, and there's a taste in your mouth that falls somewhere between rust and old potatoes. You sit up slowly, swinging your legs over the side of the bunk. They don't want to move. Your knees are stiff, ankles swollen. You try not to think about the swelling. Everyone's got it. Too much standing, too little circulation, and way too much salt in the stew. Your feet hit the floor with a slap. Wet again. You sigh and shuffle to your boots, which are somehow both crusty and damp. You slide them on. One sock is missing. The rat probably took it. Honestly, you hope he enjoyed it more than you ever did. Breakfast, such as it is a familiar routine. Bread, gravy, a hint of fish, or possibly just a fish-shaped memory. The tea's weaker today. Someone clearly reused the leaves. Again, no one talks. Everyone's conserving energy. Even chewing is done in slow motion. It's like watching a room full of exhausted cows trying to remember what grass is. You scrape your bowl clean with a crust of bread. Not because you're still hungry, but because you want to avoid the scraping motion later. Once your hands start, they won't stop. You check your fingers. Black under the nails. Again. Always. And one is starting to crack. You've been avoiding this. There's a small cut near the nail bed. Just a nick. You picked at it 2 days ago. Now it's red, puffy, warm. Infection. You sigh. There's no real medical bay on this ship. Just a box of supplies bolted to the wall, filled with gauze, alcohol, and a tin of salve that expired sometime during Napoleon's career. You dip your finger in the salve. It smells like turpentine and sadness. It stings as you apply it, but at least that means it's doing something. Should cut that off, Jeb says behind you, sipping his tea. You jump. Ignore him, mutters the cook. He says that about everything. It's a solution, Jeb replies. Not my fault if it's elegant. You wrap the finger in cloth. It throbs with each heartbeat. It's a small thing, a tiny wound, but down here, tiny things grow. Historians still argue whether infection was the greatest killer on steamships or just the most avoidable. They write papers. They debate the numbers. You live the outcome, and you know it's always the little things. A cut, a blister, a sore that doesn't heal. You head to the flu. It's waiting. It always is. Today's section is narrow, greasy. It smells worse than usual, like something died, then burned, then got politely composted into engine heat. You crawl in, bandana over your mouth, scraper in hand. You settle into the rhythm. Scrape, pull, cough, wipe, repeat. Your finger pulses with pain. You try using your other hand, but it's slower, less precise. You're ambidextrous now, by force. The soot flakes off in sheets, thick, sticky, like old lasagna made of regret. You wonder if there's a word for the sound it makes, like wet sand on a window. The light dims behind you. That's not a metaphor. The bulb above the flue just flickered and died. You're in darkness now, not pitch black. You've got a small lantern hanging from your belt, but the difference is sharp. The shadows stretch longer. The flue feels deeper. You press on. Scrape, scrape. You hear something clink behind you. You pause. Another clink. You twist, bumping your shoulder. Jeb's voice, distant. Just a wrench. Dropped it. You nod, though he can't see you. Still, your heart's beating faster. Everything echoes in here. Even dropped tools sound like ghosts trying to make a point. You keep scraping. Then something drops into your lap. You freeze. It's a soot clump. Harmless. Just a chunk of compressed black dust that broke free from above. But for a moment, it felt like the flue was spitting something out, like it rejected your presence. You shake it off. Keep going. You finish the section, back out, and sit down hard against the wall. Your back cracks. Your legs spasm. You breathe. The lantern swings slightly. You look down at your finger. Worse. The skin's starting to go pale around the red. Not good. You pour vinegar over it. It burns so much you see stars. You laugh. Because why not? Someone across the room sneezes. Someone else groans. The fireman curses at the coal for not cooperating, as if coal cares. You feel like you've been here your whole life. Maybe you have. You think back. Try to remember your first day. You can't. Not really. You remember being new, being clean. That weird optimism that maybe this wasn't so bad. You remember the first time you saw the boiler's open mouth, glowing red, and thought it looked hungry. You remember the first time you saw a flue and how narrow it seemed. Now, they don't seem narrow. You've just shrunk to fit them. You look at your hands. They're not your hands anymore. They're soot covered tools, with fingernails hanging on by sheer willpower. Your infected finger twitches. You wiggle it, still attached. For now, you lean back. Let the engine hum through your bones. Let the sweat trickle down your back. Let the heat fold over you like a blanket made of lead. You close your eyes and wonder not when this ends, but if you'll notice when it does. You wake up to screaming. Not loud, not panicked, just sharp. One single scream that echoes off the iron walls and goes quiet just as quickly as it came. A cut-off sort of sound, like someone fell asleep mid-shriek. You sit up fast. Too fast. Your spine objects immediately, sending a flare of pain down your back. Your knees pop. Your head swims. The bunk groans in protest as you climb out and stagger into your boots. No one else is moving, because this isn't new. Screams happen. The first few times, you jumped like a cat tossed into a bucket. Now you just wait. Listen. If there's a second scream, then it's worth paying attention. If not, it's probably just someone rolling over and dreaming about being crushed by a flue door again. This one came from midship. Probably that new lad in bunk 6. You've seen him shivering after shifts, eyes wide, whispering about the walls being too close. He's not wrong. Claustrophobia isn't some abstract concept down here. It's the decorating theme. You grab your shirt. It's still damp. Feels like sleeping in wet cardboard. You wring it out, toss it on, and stagger toward the boiler like a man heading to confession. The fireman's already there. He gives you a look. Not angry, not friendly, just aware. You hear it? You ask. He nods, then points to the shovel. Coal duty today. You take it. Shoveling's not part of your normal routine, but everything's flexible down here. If someone's down sick, scraped raw, or cracked wide open by fatigue, someone else fills in. Today, it's your turn. You open the coal hatch. It hisses like an angry cat. The heat blasts you in the face. Instant sweat, instant regret. You blink and wipe your forehead with the back of your wrist, already black, with soot before you've even started. You shovel, scoop, swing, drop, scoop, swing, drop. The rhythm is hypnotic. Scoop, swing, drop, over and over, like you're feeding the belly of a beast that never stops eating. The furnace belches with every bite. You can feel its hunger in your bones. You've read that a steamship of this size burns through over 5 tons of coal a day. That's not a poetic exaggeration. That's literal mountains of rock being turned into motion, heat, and ash. And you're just a guy in the middle of it, flinging shovelfuls into the abyss. The heat is insane. It's not just hot, it's layered hot. Like being cooked inside a sauna made of copper pipes and resentment. Your shirt clings, your hair drips, your socks squelch. Your arms are already tired by the 4th load. You're on number 47 now. You hum a little tune to distract yourself. Something your mother used to sing. It sounds ridiculous down here, but it keeps the ghosts at bay. Jeb shows up with water. You drink. It tastes like metal and mildew, but it's wet. You're shoveling, he says, wiping his brow. Apparently, means someone's down. New kid? He nods. Cracked. Was talking to the walls. You shovel again. One-handed this time. They answer? Jeb grins. Always. You both laugh. Not because it's funny, because it's better than crying. The next hour disappears in shoveling. You lose track of everything except the scoop of the shovel and the rush of sweat down your back. Your mind starts to wander. You think about the flame inside the furnace. It's mesmerizing. Alive. It flares and shifts and breathes. You wonder if it knows you. If it remembers the sound of your boots. If it misses you, when you're not there. You blink hard. You've been staring too long. You shovel again. Suddenly, clang. The shovel hits something, not coal. You dig it out. A tin cup, bent, crushed. Someone must have tossed it in by mistake or on purpose. You stare at it for a second. Just a piece of metal, warped by heat. It feels symbolic, somehow. You toss it aside. More shoveling. Your arms are jelly now. Your hands blistered through the gloves. You switch grips. Doesn't help. Your back screams. Eventually, the fireman waves you off. You drop the shovel like it's made of lead. You stagger out, lungs aching, arms numb. You lean against the coolest wall you can find. Not cold, just less hot, and slide down until you're sitting. Your skin steams. You probably do too. A rat scurries by. You nod to it. It nods back. The unspoken rule: don't ask questions you don't want answered. You catch a whiff of yourself. It's layered: sweat, smoke, salt, grease, regret, possibly onions. You need a wash. You head to the wash station, which is still just a rusty bucket and a bar of soap shaped like a tombstone. You pour water over your head. It's warm. Of course it is. There is no cold. You lather. You scrub. You rinse. It does nothing. But you feel slightly more human afterward. Your hands shake as you dry off. The fireman walks by, points at the flue. Back to scraping, of course. You crawl in, muscles trembling, eyes stinging. The soot falls around you like dirty snow. You smile in the dark. Because the scream didn't come from you today. And that's something. There's a superstition among the older scrapers. Not the ones who talk much, but the ones who've been down here longest, who've got burns older than some crew members, and fingers that curl like rusty hooks. They say if you work long enough, the ship starts talking to you. Not in words, in sounds. They claim the groans have meaning. That the thrum of the pistons, the rattle of the valves, even the whistle of escaping steam, it all adds up to a kind of language. One you don't understand until you're too tired, too worn down, too open not to hear it. You used to laugh at that. Now, you're not so sure, because lately, the ship's been whispering. Not clearly, not loud, but there's a rhythm to it. Like Morse code for the soul. The pipes knock in threes. The vents hiss in reply. The walls tick like they're keeping secrets. You try not to focus on it, but it's there. You blink at your reflection in the bucket water. Someone once said, you looked young. They wouldn't say that now. Your cheeks are sunken. Your eyelids stained. Your face bears the unmistakable map of someone who spent too much time in the belly of a beast made of rivets and regret. You dip your rag again. Wipe. The grime doesn't come off. You're past the point of cleaning. You are now part soot. You laugh softly, because what else do? You trudge back to the flue. Today's shift has gifted you a new challenge. The vertical shaft. You stare up into the darkness. It's narrow. It's steep. It's coated in decades of soot that clings like guilt. There's a harness, sort of. A belt and a rope attached to a ring overhead, which runs up to a pulley that looks like it last worked properly during Queen Victoria's childhood. You clip in. You climb. Each step is slow, deliberate. You wedge your boots against the sides, using the shaft walls as leverage. Your scraper hangs from your belt. Your gloves slip. You mutter to yourself. Not words, just sounds to remind yourself that you exist. Halfway up, your foot slips. You dangle for a moment. The rope creaks. You hold still. Wait, then climb again. No one talks about this shaft. It's the flue people forget exists until it's your turn. They call it the chimney, not because it connects to the outside, but because it feels like it should. Like if you climb high enough, maybe you'll find sunlight. You won't. It's just more soot. You reach the scrape zone. Anchor your feet. Start working. Each scrape dislodges chunks that fall down past your boots, bouncing off your thighs, smacking your chest, landing with soft thuds. You're lucky your goggles are still intact. The soot gets in your nose, your mouth, behind your ears. You imagine your lungs now, blackened, lined with ash. If someone sliced you open, would smoke come out? You sneeze 3 times. It echoes. Someone below yells, "Bless you." You smile, a real one, then cough again. The vertical shaft is slower. Every motion has to be calculated. You can't lean forward, can't relax. If you lose your grip, you'll drop. The rope might catch you, or it might not. Historians still argue whether the safety measures on 19th century steamships were tragically inadequate or just tragically ignored. Either way, you've seen enough near misses to know luck plays a much bigger role than any manual. You keep going. Scrape. Pause. Breathe. Repeat. Your hands cramp. You shift your weight. Wipe your nose on your sleeve. More soot. Always more. At some point, your muscles stop complaining. They just exist. A background hum of ache. You finish the section. Begin your descent. Down is worse because you're tired now. Your legs shake. The soot makes the walls slippery. You slip once, heart lurching, before catching yourself. Your boot bangs the side. A chunk of metal scrapes off. You don't care. You just want ground. Finally, your boots hit the floor. You unclip. Collapse to your knees. Someone hands you a tin of water. You drink greedily, even though it tastes like rusted hope. The fireman pats your shoulder. Doesn't say anything. Doesn't need to. You earned something today. Not pride. Not thanks. Just survival. You slump against the wall. Close your eyes. And the ship whispers again. You think, maybe it's not talking to you. Maybe it's just talking through you. You stare at the envelope in your hands, like it's a relic from another life. It's wrinkled, smudged with thumbprints of coal and sweat, the corners soft with handling. There's no stamp. There's barely a name. Just Maggie, written in the same nervous scrawl you've used since you were 12. You've been carrying it for weeks, maybe months, unsent, because even if you could find someone to deliver it next time you dock, what would you say? Hi, still alive. Scraping soot. Haven't seen the sky since Easter. Hope the chickens are well? You look down at your fingers. They don't bend quite right anymore. Too many burns, too many blisters, too many hours curled around metal tools in tight corners. Your fingernails are chipped. One is just gone. The skin under it looks like someone's tried to sculpt it with a fork. You try writing sometimes, but your hand cramps after 2 lines. Your pencil snaps. You get distracted by a boiler scream or a dripping valve or the sudden intrusive thought that maybe you don't remember her laugh after all. So the letters remain unsent, because what would be the point? You're not sure you're the same person anymore. The man who left home thought this job would be temporary, that it would be a stepping stone to something better, a way to earn, to send money back, to build a life. Instead, you built calluses. Your bunk creaks as you sit. Across from you, someone's humming a lullaby, maybe to themselves, maybe to the ship. It doesn't matter. No one complains. Soft sounds are precious here. They remind you the world outside exists, even if just as memory. You unfold the letter. The words are smeared. You rub your thumb over the first line, "Dear Maggie." Then it fades into watermarks and crossed out thoughts. You remember trying to describe your day in one draft. Gave up halfway through the sentence. "Today I cleaned out the flu and then what?" How do you explain a world of endless black, of aching wrists and choking on ash, and laughing at things no sane man would find funny? You crumpled that one, wrote another. "Dear Maggie, I'm thinking of the time we sat by the orchard and shared," and then the cook shouted about someone nearly losing a toe to a falling grate, and you forgot what came next. You tried again. Dear Maggie, I think the ship is breathing. Not in a scary way, just like it's alive. That one felt too strange, too real, too hard to explain to someone who still gets to walk on grass. You hear footsteps. It's the post runner, more ceremonial than functional. He carries a little satchel where crew can leave letters before landfall. He walks past your bunk without stopping. You keep the envelope tucked in your lap. You were going to give it to him. But not today. Again, you look around. Jeb's asleep. His feet twitch occasionally, like he's running in a dream, or trying to. The fireman is off duty, shirtless, smoking a cigarette that smells like dried leaves and quiet defiance. Someone's fixing a valve nearby. The clangs are gentle, practiced. You dip your pen again. Try one more time. Dear Maggie, we're somewhere in the North Atlantic, I think. The sea is loud, but I haven't seen it in days. Maybe weeks. The only water I know is the drip from the overhead pipe, which I use to cool my tea. Don't worry, it's only mostly rust. Today I cleaned the vertical flue again. I think I lost a sock. Might have been a rat. Either way, I hope he needed it more than me. My hands are still mine, I think. Though they don't look like it. I thought of you yesterday. Not sure why. Something about the way the engine groaned reminded me of that old windmill behind your father's barn. Funny how the brain does that. I miss Peaches, and light and quiet. I miss you. I'm okay, don't worry. I'll write again when I can hold a pencil longer than 5 minutes. You stop there. Fold it. Seal it. No stamp, just soot. You walk to the post runner. He's sorting by hand. You hesitate, then hand it over. He raises an eyebrow. Sure. You nod. And that's that. The letter is gone. Maybe it gets delivered. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe she reads it. Maybe she doesn't. But it's out now. Out of your pocket. Out of your hands. Out of your chest. And that feels like breathing. You're sweating before you even open your eyes. Not a delicate sheen either. This is the kind of full body, shirt plastering, eyelid dripping sweat that makes you feel like someone rolled you into a soup pot while you were sleeping. You sit up, and your back peels off the bunk like old wallpaper. The air is thick, not just hot, wet hot, like inhaling through a damp rag. You can taste the iron in it, like licking the inside of a railroad spike. You blink a few times. The world blurs. You press your fingers to your temples. Headache. Dull. Heavy. It pulses behind your eyes like a second heartbeat. You swing your legs down and stand. Bad idea. Your knees wobble. Your vision darkens around the edges. You grab the edge of the bunk and wait for the room to stop tilting like a cheap carnival ride. You whisper, just tired. But you don't believe it, because this feels different. Your hands shake. Your skin's hot to the touch. Your stomach growls. But you're not hungry, just hollow. You shuffle out into the corridor. The lights flicker. Someone passes you and recoils slightly. Mate, you don't look right. You wave them off. You don't feel right either, but there's no sick bay here. No real doctor. Just a box of aspirin and the cook's mystical vinegar that he claims can cure anything, including heartbreak and sea rot. You reach the engine room and everything feels louder. The pistons aren't just chugging, they're roaring. Every valve sounds like it's being beaten with a hammer. The boiler's breathing heavy. You close your eyes for a second, and then, just for a moment, you see it. A beach, sunlight on water, white sand. You're barefoot, holding something cold. Maybe lemonade. You hear laughter. Then your forehead slams into the flue door. You're back. Back in the bowels of the ship, covered in soot and hallucinating about beaches you've never actually been to. You touch your head. It's bleeding. Not much, just a scrape. but it stings like betrayal. Jeb shows up behind you. Morning, he says. You grunt. You all right? Peachy, you lie. He stares. Your eyes are weird. Thanks. No, like one's drifting. And you're pale. I mean paler. You lean against the wall. It's warm. Too warm. The boiler growls. You blink again. The beach is back. This time there's a dog. Looks like your old one. Samson. Used to chase chickens and nap under your bed. You try to speak, but nothing comes out. Your throat's dry. Your tongue feels like it's wrapped in burlap. Jeb slaps your arm. Hey, stay with me. I'm fine, you slur. You've got the fever. No, no, just tired. He yells for someone to get water. They bring a cup. You down it in one go. It tastes like metal and mercy. Someone presses a cloth to your neck. You sit or fall. You're not sure which. The floor is vibrating again. The ship's rhythm. You try to match your breathing to it. In, thrum, out, clang. Your skin prickles. Your spine twitches. You feel like you're overheating from the inside. Historians still debate what the most common illness was in the engine rooms of steamships. Heat stroke, respiratory infections, or general malnourishment induced fevers. You're thinking it's probably all of the above. A buffet of ailments. Take your pick. Jeb's still talking, but his voice is far away now. You close your eyes. You're back on the beach. Samson runs past, barking. You laugh, then someone throws a bucket of cold water on you. Reality snaps back. You gasp. The fireman stands over you, empty bucket in hand. You were going sideways, he says. We're not losing another one. Another? He doesn't answer. You look around. There's a blanket over your shoulders. Or something trying to be one. You're wet. Shivering now. And still dizzy. You look up at the boiler. It's calm. Silent. Just for a moment. Then it groans. The universe is mocking you. Jeb crouches. You can't work like this. I have to. They'll understand. No, they won't. You both know the truth. No one gets time off unless they're dying. And even then, you only get enough time off to make it back to work, barely alive. He helps you stand. You stumble. The cook hands you something. A slice of lemon. You stare. Where? Officers drop some. I stole it. Take it. You bite. It's like biting sunshine. Your eyes water. Your mouth tingles. For a second, you're alive again. You whisper thanks. The cook nods. We all crash sooner or later. Trick is not to crash permanently. You walk slowly toward the flu. Still fevered. Still aching. But at least you've had a lemon slice. And that, down here, is practically medicine. You've developed a limp. Not a dramatic, dragging one. More of a subtle hitch in your step. Like your right knee forgot how knees are supposed to function and now improvises every third movement. You don't remember when it started. It might have been the flu ladder last week, or the pipe you tripped over yesterday, or maybe just the daily punishment of shoveling coal into a beast that's never full. Either way, you're limping now. No one comments. Everyone's got something. Jeb walks with a stoop from bending into pipes too many times. Collins whistles through his nose thanks to a broken one that healed sideways. And Higgins, the wiry lad who never speaks, has a left eye that doesn't blink. You're just part of the scenery now. Another walking scrape in boots. You pass the galley. The cook hands you a slice of bread without asking. It's moldy. You eat it anyway. It tastes like fatigue. No stew today. Something's wrong with the pot. Too much rust, he said, which is saying something. Considering yesterday's stew tasted like you licked an iron fence in August. You chew. Your jaw aches. You remember a time when chewing didn't feel like work. Back when food had texture, temperature, taste. Now it's just sustenance. You swallow. You cough. You keep moving. Today, you've been assigned the crawl. That's what they call the lowest flu on the ship. It runs beneath the boilers, between ribs of the hull. Technically, it's supposed to be cleaned once a week. You know for a fact it's been over two. You lower yourself in. The ceiling is so low, you can't even lift your head. You have to shimmy, elbows, knees, push, scrape. The walls are slick with grease, ash, and time. The heat is unbearable, worse than usual. Your breath fogs in front of your eyes, then vanishes. You're not sure if it's sweat or condensation, or the last pieces of your soul evaporating. You keep crawling, scraper in one hand, rag in the other. The floor is hot enough to cook an egg, if you had one. You pause, rest your forehead on your arm. Big mistake. You burn your wrist on a pipe. You swear softly. The flue answers with a groan. You laugh. Because of course it does. Historians still debate how effective ventilation really was in the lower decks of steamships. The consensus is not very. You could have told them that without cracking a single textbook. Your lungs wheeze now, a wet sound, like a pair of accordion bellows left in the rain. You press on. You find a rat skeleton, just bones, tiny, fragile, picked clean. You feel an absurd kinship with it. You leave it be. Further in, the soot thickens. You scrape it away in clumps. Some pieces fall off like burnt wallpaper. Others cling like guilt. You wipe your goggles, only to smear them worse. You close your eyes and imagine you're somewhere else. Anywhere else. A tavern, a field, a room with windows. But the only breeze you feel is heat rising from below. You shift again. The metal groans. You hit your head on a bolt. Again, you sigh. You miss ceilings, and fresh socks, and beds, and privacy. You don't even remember what silence sounds like. The ship never stops. It always hums, clicks, breathes. Even when you sleep, especially then, it's alive around you. A restless god built of iron and fire. You reach the end of the crawl. You sit. It's the size of a small closet. You close your eyes. And for a moment you forget where you are. You remember the sky. Not in detail, just the idea of it. That endless blue nothing with stars stitched through it like someone punched holes in velvet. You breathe in, ash. You cough. Back to reality. Time to crawl back. You move slowly, the way people move when they've stopped believing in the concept of urgency. You emerge blinking into the corridor. You're greeted by Jeb holding a cup of tea. It's mostly water, but warm. You nod, accept it, sip. He says, "Heard you met the rat. I think he had it easier." He chuckles. You both stand in silence. You realize then, with quiet clarity, that there's no end to this. Not really. You'll scrape and shovel and climb and crawl until one day something gives out. Your knee, your lungs, the boiler, maybe all three, and they'll carry you topside, if you're lucky. If not, they'll just let the soot claim you. But right now, you're still standing, still scraping, still breathing. That's not hope. That's inertia. But it's something. The ship lurches, not a wave lurch. Not the slow roll of a swell underfoot. This is a deep, grinding, bone-level shudder that vibrates through the floor and up your legs like the belly of the earth just growled. You freeze mid-scrape. So does Jeb. So does everyone. And then, silence. No pistons. No chugging. No hiss of steam. Just nothing. It's the quietest moment you've heard since you boarded, which is exactly why it's terrifying. Because on a steamship, silence isn't peace. It's a warning. It means the engine stopped. It means something broke. You and Jeb lock eyes. No words needed. You drop your tools and run. The boiler room is already in chaos. The fireman is shouting over a hiss of steam, venting from somewhere it shouldn't. Someone swinging a wrench the size of a toddler. Another is kicking a valve as if it owes him money. The pressure gauge is pinned in the red. The air smells sharp, like metal in panic. "Relief valve stuck," someone yells. "Try the auxiliary," someone else replies. You leap into action, not because you're brave, because doing something feels better than standing still. You grab the auxiliary, release, and twist. Nothing. Jeb joins you, puts his full weight into it. Still nothing. Then, crack, the lever gives. Steam hisses out in a hot, violent gust that nearly knocks you both back. The boiler wheezes like a punched lung. The pressure drops, slowly, agonizingly, but it drops. People stop shouting. The hiss quiets. Someone mutters, "That was too close." Someone else mutters again. You slump against a pipe. You don't realize how much you're shaking until you try to stand. Your legs feel hollow. Your heart's pounding. Your ears are ringing from the pressure spike. Jeb sits next to you. Neither of you speaks. You don't have to. Everyone's thinking the same thing. It almost ended here. Historians still argue whether most steamship boiler accidents were preventable or inevitable. Down here, you know the truth. They're both. Because the longer something is pushed beyond its limits, the more it stops being a machine and starts becoming a ticking promise. The engine slowly groans back to life. You hear it, not just the mechanical grind, but the heartbeat of the ship resuming. It's almost comforting, almost. You go back to scraping, because of course you do. You finish the shift. The soot is heavier than usual. It clings to your skin like a warning. Your boots squelch as you trudge to the bunks. You peel off your gloves. Your hands look like someone else's. You pour water into a dented tin basin and rinse your face. The water turns black. You smile at your reflection. Just a smear of soot and eyes. And somehow, you're still here. That night, you crawl into your bunk and lie flat. You don't cry. You don't pray. You just stare at the ceiling, listening to the engine breathe again. And somewhere between the sigh of steam and the rattle of rivets, you drift. The ship rocks gently. The pipes sing their strange lullaby. And for once, your dreams are quiet. You're still. Finally, no scraping, no shoveling, no burning steel against your back. Just stillness. Your fingers uncurl. The heat fades from your skin. Not because the boiler stopped, but because your body finally stopped fighting it. Even the hum of the ship, that constant pulse beneath your bones, feels softer now, like it's easing back, letting you breathe again. Your mind starts to loosen, like old rope unspooling. And now, there's space. Room for thoughts you haven't touched in weeks. You think of rain, of quiet mornings, of bread that doesn't crack like tile. You imagine the sound of leaves underfoot, birds, a kettle whistling, not from pressure, but from tea, the soft clink of a cup on a saucer, the kind of small, beautiful noise that only happens when things aren't breaking. And Maggie, you see her face, not clearly, just enough. Enough to remember what waiting feels like. You stretch your legs a little in your bunk. Sore, but solid. You breathe, slow and full, for the first time all day. The ship creaks, but it doesn't complain. The flues are quiet. The pressure's down. And for now, just now, you're safe. So let the engines do their thing. Let the night keep watch. You've done enough. Close your eyes. The soot can wait. End of script. Sweet dreams.